All right, we are on. We've got a quorum. We've got a lot of meetings going on. A lot of people have checked in and said they are having to go to make quorums and other meetings, but I thank the members of the committee that are here. We're going to take up 4 bills this afternoon. These bills have been vetted in subcommittee. I want to thank our subcommittee chairman. We've only got one of them here, but the others, they've done a great job on working these bills this session. We're not taking any public testimony today. We're going to listen to the presentation of the bills. We're going to give the committee opportunity to ask questions. No public testimony, so we're not going to have sign-up sheets. The authors will present the bills. Committee will ask questions, and then we will ask for a vote up or down or table or whatever the committee wants to do. But thank you for being here. Again, I appreciate the work of the subcommittees. We got a lot going on. I'm trying to think of that song. What is it? We got a long way to go and a short time to get there this afternoon because we got other meetings that's going on after this one. Let's have a word of prayer and we'll get started. Lord, we do thank you for this day. Thank you that you've given us the opportunity to take care of the business of our great state. We ask, Lord, that you bless the ones that are here today, bless those that are presenting, bless the decisions that will be made. We pray, Lord, that they'll be in your will. Go with us now. Just bless this meeting in Jesus' name. Amen. Again, I want to thank the committee for their hard work. I just appreciate all you good folks and you out in the audience. Thank y'all for being here. Got 4 propositions before us. We're going to take up first House Bill 889. Representative Kidd, you want to talk to us about your little proposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let me see if I can get you on down there.
Thank you, sir. I think it's on. House Bill 889, LC 363019S. Your subcommittee had it a couple of times. They heard testimony in support of this bill by the Georgia Funeral Home Association and Independent Funeral Home Association. What this bill clearly does is lets people who have more than one funeral home and have one crematory, they're able to advertise that they have on their letterhead and so forth that it's Joe Blow Funeral Home and Crematory, and list their 2 locations or 3 locations or 4 locations, as long as those locations are within a 40-mile radius. It will keep those. If you remember a couple of years ago, we had people shipping in bodies up to North Georgia to be cremated, and the person never cremated, just put them back in cars and so forth. But it'll keep that from taking place and keep somebody from coming in and having a funeral home in North Georgia and a funeral home in South Georgia and only have one crematory and shipping bodies back and forth.
All right, any questions of Representative Kidd? I think this came out of your subcommittee, Chairman Dixon, is that right?
At the proper time, I'd be glad to make a motion.
All right, any questions from the committee members? All right, it's proper time, sir.
Move do pass for House Bill 889 by substitute.
By substitute, okay.
Second.
Got a move and second. All right, now committee members, last chance for any questions. Okay, hearing none, all in favor, let them say an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. All right, we'll get it reported out, sir. Thank you very much. Representative Scott, you've got a proposition for us, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have here today substitute to House Bill 654 that would require studios to post notification that certain tattoos could disqualify them the wear from military services.
Y'all got a copy of, I think you're working off of, ma'am, LC 410704S. This is a substitute to House Bill 654.
Yes.
And
0704 or 0706?
06.
06, when I say 04, I'm sorry, 0706S. All right, and we've got the sign in place. You've got the fines. You have to go back a couple of times in subcommittee, I believe, and get this bill perfected.
Yes.
Any questions from the committee?
Proper time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Move to pass.
Thank you. Mr. Chair. Got a move and second. Last chance for any questions of the author. Hearing none, all in favor, let them say an aye. And this is passing House Bill 654 by substitute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All right, House Bill 498. And
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll be down there with him.
yes, sir. I think that'd probably be a help. Noticing what happened with I'm sorry, I won't bring that up, Representative.
The chairman can join us in here too.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, but I got all I want to handle right here, brother. Now, y'all going to have to, we got two bills in the folder here. Y'all going to have to tell us which one you want to be working off of, my friend.
LC 336401S,
Okay.
substitute.
Substitute to the House Bill 498. All right, my friend.
I would like to go ahead and move LC. With the.
Slide that mic over to you just a little bit if you would.
With the chairman's permission, you know, this has been a bill that's taken quite a bit of time. We've got two very passionate groups that take care of their patients and have their patients' well-being in foremost in their mind. I want to say Chairman Tom Dixon, sitting to my left, has really done a huge amount of work on this. As you know, that Representative Chandler has a bill that addressed the psychologist testing issues. This bill, in its original form, addressed the diagnosis issue for LPCs. Years ago, two other groups, the composite board, got the diagnosis within their language, the marriage counselors and the welfare counselors. And the LPCs did not get that for some reason, although they do operate on the same composite board. So the original bill that I introduced dealt only with that. You will see now wording, and you will see that on page 2, line 45, diagnosed added to the bill. Then you will see other wording on line 48, graduate level education, supervised in front of the experience or its equivalency is determined by the board for persons licensed by the board on or before June 30th, 2016.
There's the First Amendment.
We have amendments coming too. Yeah, I know.
Now, this came out of subcommittee. I thought it was perfected. I won't ask about the subcommittee, Mr. Chair.
It was perfect when it came out of the subcommittee, and it's now been
Perfected more.
perfected more.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, going further on page 3, I'm going to leave the amendments.
Yeah, let's talk about the bill, and then we'll go back.
Get to those. You'll see line 88 added mental abilities. This has to do with examining board and the board of examiners from psychologists. I did call the composite board and speak to them for the LPCs, and they have had 4 cases in 8 years of LPCs testing outside of what was considered their scope. So this has not been a major problem, 4 cases in 8 years. And typically, I'm going to add that, you know, in our board of dentistry and board of medicines, we really focus on protecting the patient. That's what the board is there for, the patient welfare, the citizens of Georgia. And in my mind, these boards can apply the necessary means to make sure that the public is being protected and things are being done within the scope of practice. But having said that, we'll go on to page 4, and you will see a new addition. You will see line 116 additions again. Well, above there, including added to diagnosis, also, but not limited to organic brain disorders. A few, you know, clarifications of including and psychological testing added, and then the major add on 116 when engaged in the practice of psychology. And you can read through all that. On line 129, line 30, again, it says nothing in this chapter can be construed as prohibiting a person licensed under Chapter 10A of the title from providing services he or she is authorized to perform, and it goes on until 144. I'm not going to get into the depth of this simply because we got a change coming, and I will let Representative Tom Dixon speak to those changes and amendments.
Mr. Chairman, about 5 minutes before we started, they finally came to agreement on some of these things. Once you all say yes, it will be. Although I think there may be, when Betsy gets to write up those changes, she may change a word to make it fit if the committee will agree to that. The first change is on page 2, beginning on line 48. It puts, you're deleting the words as determined by the board for persons licensed by the board on or before June 30th of 2016.
So we're going to leave in on line 48, or its equivalency,
Period.
period. All right, and then we're going to strike. But what we're going to do, we're going to listen to your amendments right now.
We can take them one at a time.
Well,
if you want.
we'll have to, according to the rules of the House, we're supposed to move and second the bill, discuss the bill, and then take up the amendments, have the amendments presented. But if you want to present the amendments and then let us have the committee move in second, or we can go ahead. If there's any discussion about the bill now, I think we need to go ahead and hear the amendments. Then we'll listen. Then we'll get a move in second on the bill, and then we'll see about adding amendments in there. So go ahead and present all your
Okay.
amendments.
The next one starts on line 53, the word supervised. The second word on line 53 is, excuse me, it comes out, and graduate on line 52 comes out, those two words.
Okay, so we're deleting those two. Strike those two words.
On page 3, you're going to delete lines 72 through 81 in their entirety.
Okay, striking section B then.
Yes. And that's one of those places where Betsy may say we come back and we take the A out, but that would be something that legal.
Yeah, that would be a
counsel can do.
scripter's decision there.
Okay, the next is on page 4. On line 100, the word multiple, strike it. And at the end of that line, after the word that, you would put an A in parentheses. And on line 101, after the word functioning, in parentheses, you would put a B.
All right, let me make sure on line 100, we're striking multiple, and then we say use of assessment instruments that A, that's a letter A there indicating a separate paragraph or something.
Right. Correct.
Measure. Then you're going to start with measure on another line.
Yes. Measure mental abilities, personality characteristics, or neuropsychological functioning.
Okay.
And I think probably there's a comma or something that Betsy will put there. And then the next section is B, in order to diagnose, evaluate, classify, etc.
Okay. That would be a B and another paragraph there. So A, paragraph measure, B, paragraph in order.
Line 112.
I'm glad this was ready. Okay.
You don't know how glad I am. The second word on line 112, the word for, you strike it.
Okay.
And then you move to line 120. And that will now read the meaning of psychological testing as provided in paragraph 6 or section 9 of this code section.
So you're
Adding the words or section 9. And next, on line
Well, we're about to run out of paper, thank God.
Yeah, you tell me about it. On line 133, after the word screening, you're going to add the words and assessment. The
All
next
right.
change is on line 135. After the word disability, excuse me,
Okay,
it's not plural.
disability.
You place it that you will have a period, and you will delete the rest of that paragraph.
All right, we'll delete from or all the way down to line 144.
Correct.
Okay.
You will have a test on this after.
That it?
That's it.
Whoa,
How'd I do?
you did great. That was an excellent presentation, sir. All right, committee members, we've heard the presentation. We've gone over the changes. Are there questions for the author and the presenter on this piece of legislation? Yes, sir, Chairman Harrell.
Presume this will be directed to our subcommittee chair with a couple of his amendments. So I'm going back to page 2, and this is beginning on line 42. This is the definition of professional counseling.
Correct.
All right, so the first change on line 49, we've added the infamous word diagnose.
Correct.
And they also, we've taken out, we added graduate level education on line 48 and supervised experience also on 48, but we've deleted graduate education on 52 and supervised training on 53. Is this because it was simply redundant, or by moving?
Yes, it's redundant.
So it changes no impact or effect in the definition whatsoever?
No.
And then on page 3, where we've deleted all of B, and page 5, where from 135 to the balance of the section, we've deleted all that paragraph. Can you explain to me why we've taken those out? Is this the two groups that are negotiating this bill that we just reached final compromise 5 minutes before this meeting, deleting this language, were those two paragraphs, if you will, added by one of the others and not previously discussed? Or how do we get to striking those two
Whole paragraphs. They were, this part of the bill where those two paragraphs are in dealt with the definition of psychological testing, which has been an issue. The LPCs were allowed to use certain tests, but not for psychological testing purposes. And the definitions of that is where all this, or much of this discussion centered around. So part of it was trying to come up with definitions that would clarify. And so what one group might see as clarifying, another group would say is confusing. And so it was trying to put these together. The sub with that language in it was one of the early attempts. And from that point on, we did not create a new sub. So we had to come back and change something that was discussed a week or two ago.
Final question, then, if I might. So, and I appreciate both groups generating so much email. The most recent emails have suggested approval for a sub. So that must be before we've taken out all this information now. So
Right.
my final question is, should I expect more email when we vote on this modified sub?
I mean, I can't guarantee that you're not going to get emails, but I think the basic things that both groups wanted are in this sub. Now, obviously, I mean, we all know that when you compromise, everybody gives up a little to try to get to something that will meet both groups' major objectives.
Number 17.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps it might be of value to others, but certainly to me. Could you summarize the content of the revised bill as it is, as you are proposing it be amended?
The revised bill, as it is amended, does two things. First of all, it adds the word diagnose, which to the LPC scope of practice, which was something that was critical to them. Much of the balance of the bill deals with what is psychological testing. And I mean, that's essentially all of that language. That's what it is trying to arrive at psychological testing and what constitutes psychological testing, which is a very difficult thing to arrive at, because the tests that are used by both psychologists and LPCs, in one instance, they constitute psychological testing, but they can take the same test and use it in a little different manner as in a counseling situation, and then it doesn't constitute psychological testing. I've learned a lot about that over the last 2 weeks, and I hope that I just made it as clear for you as it has become for me.
Did that help you any at all, sir?
Yes, thank you.
We may ask you to take a session.
I have scheduled several appointments.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right, before we move forward, if it's the mind of the committee to move this bill forward, and I'll say if this bill gets out of committee and moves forward, there'll be no use for us to get any more emails, because we're going to be done with it. So you can save your time on sending emails to us, because it will be out of our hands and gone. What's the mind of the committee on the bill? And then we're going to have to take up the amendments. We'll go back through the amendments. Got to move? Second. Got to move and second. All right. According to our rules, we've got a motion has been made, accepted, and second. Now we were going to entertain debate of the amendments. So we will go through again and hear these amendments. I guess that we need to. Well, that's what I was trying to decide, if we want to do them individually or not. Oh, did anybody object? I'm sorry, I asked we got to move in a second. I think we need to go ahead and we got to move in a second. Is a favor of the committee to move the bill forward at this time? All in favor, let me say an aye. Okay, now we're going to move let's move the amendments, and we'll vote on those, and then we will have a move and second to move the bill as amended by the committee.
Would it help to just simply ask if there's any objection to any of the amendments?
Let's go back over them one more time, and we'll just do them as a whole. We'll move on the amendments as a whole. If anybody objects to any particular amendment, they can bring it up at that time. That'd be all right. Let's go over one more time quickly and make sure we got it right.
Okay, page 2, you're striking everything after the word equivalency on line 48 and all of line 49.
Okay.
On line 52, you're striking the word graduate. On line 53, you're striking the word supervised. On page 3, you're deleting lines 72 through 81. On line 100, you're striking the word multiple and inserting after the word that, parentheses, a parentheses, open and close it. And then on line 101, after the word functioning, again, you are opening and closing parentheses with a B. On line 112, you're striking the word for. On line 120, you're adding after the number 6 in parentheses, you're adding the words or section 9.
Yes, Jeremy. There is no section 9.
I think that's referring to the section 9 that's on 120. It starts on line 129. And actually, Betsy wrote both of the original bills that this is made from. So,
Jeremy is filling in for Betsy and Sean Marie this afternoon, so he's pitch hitting for us. So thank you, Jeremy. I was going to ask you if you were getting all this so you could help get this done. Okay. Thank you, sir.
On page 4, line 133, after the word screening, you add the words and assessment. And then, excuse me, on page 5 we're on, line 133. And then on line 135, after the word disability, you place a period and you delete from there down to through line 144.
All right, we've heard the amendments presented to this substitute to House Bill 498. We get a move and second to approve these amendments. Move that the amendments, the bill do pass. Let's vote on let's vote on these amendments. Yeah, let's vote for the amendments. Okay, we've got a move to approve the amendments. Second.
Second.
All in favor of approving these amendments, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Now, can we get a move and second to approve LC 336401S as amended in committee? Move. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. This bill is moved. We will get Jeremy to work with Betsy and you guys to make sure this language that we've written down, it's been written down in several places. I know Matt's got it, Jeremy's got it. So we need to have this substitute from the committee ready to go to rules.
May I also say thank you to the not members, but the representatives from the psychologist group and those from the LPC group who worked together to come up with this compromise.
And thank you, and Representative, for y'all's hard work on this. I know this has been a long endeavor. It's taken about 5 or 6 weeks, I think, working on this piece of legislation, actually combining 2 pieces of legislation. So thank y'all very much. That's a good job. Thank you, members of the committee, on that. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
And I do appreciate that. But I guess we're going to have to go through the
Yeah, you need to
process.
hit the highlights for us anyway.
I'll do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. We have had several meetings on 727, and this is also LC 362999S. I hope all of you have that.
Yes, sir.
You hear this all the time, but I really mean this. This is just a little cleanup bill. Well, I mean, if you think about it, House Bill 110 was passed last year and did not take into consideration that there needs to be someone that was overseeing the sale and also the use of fireworks. And so 727 really deals with what was left out of 110. Instead of going through line, and I'll be happy to go through line by line if you would like, but there's really 4 main parts.
Let's hit those 4 main parts.
4 main parts. First of all, the very thing that we wanted most of all, and that was local control. Local control is either consisting of county governments, municipalities, or consolidated government groups that's working with a intergovernmental agreement. They would be in charge of the permitting and the regulation of the fireworks in their jurisdiction. In addition to that, there are some safety guards that is in this bill that would deal with the Department of Natural Resources and the governor in case there was a declared drought in our state or in local areas where using fireworks could be very dangerous. So that's the first main grouping. The second is just as important, if not as more important, than the local control, and that is health and public safety. One is in areas that is unlawful to actually fire these fireworks. There's a number of those. There's restrictions in areas of where they can be and distances away from of buildings such as hospitals, nursing homes, etc.
And that's starting on line 66, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
is that right on page 3?
I can give you the lines. It starts in section 2, C, little I, page 3, line about 68, if you want to really get into the meat of it. 68 through 93 really gets into those unlawful locations. There is one, and of course I know that we had a good bit of discussion about this. It starts in line 94 through 101, and that's dealing with those who might be using fireworks that are either under the influence of drugs or alcohol, which is a .08. That is in this piece of legislation. Also, in section 3, page 6, in lines 189, it seems like there's kind of a redundancy of this, but it's not. Legislative Council said that this had to be in both locations as far as the influence of alcohol and drugs being unlawful. The third rule is this, and that is that of the rule of permitting and locations for sales of consumer fireworks. Deals a great deal in where and how, and also the fees that must be paid, the areas where they might be located. Thanks to, well, Tom Taylor took off, but in his bill there was some verbiage in there that dealt with being close to a fire hydrant within 1,000 feet, which from these temporary locations it's very important. And so they're dealt with in the rules for permitting and locating these firework stands. And that's page 4 and 5, section 2 and section 4. And then the last one is section 6, and this is dealing with that came out early on back in the summer about collecting a 1% per item excise tax. And of course some said, well, we're not into raising tax. Well, what is being proposed that we reduce the sales tax from 5% to 4%, and the 1% excise tax would go to the local governments. And so, and I'll be happy to go through line by line if that's what you want to do, but those are the 4 major components that really makes up this bill, those 4 things that I've just mentioned. And I'll be happy to discuss anything and that you would like to talk about.
All right, questions from the committee. While your committee is getting there, point out to me, if you would, sir, where the approval from the local control is as far as the fireworks stands and what we're doing there. Show me the section in here about the.
Well, let me get to that.
I saw when I read it, maybe on page, let's see, I see licensee for a distributor selling fireworks from a temporary consumer. It's going to be $750 per location. But where's the part in here about the, I'm sorry.
It is not specifically in there that, in that section where it says in the permitting and licensing.
Okay, I think it's line
What it
115.
does.
Go ahead, I'm
right,
sorry.
I was about to go to that, is that it goes to that second section and the third section, and on page 6 and then on lines 189 to 207, it talks about the, let me get to it myself. It talks about those agencies or those governments that have the control over the permitting of the. Let me get my.
I think what I was.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
I got it. Section 29.6. All right. The part about the unlawful use and the of the fireworks is talked about in the compliance issues of who sets that those rules in place, and okay. Governing authorities.
All right, go ahead.
The governing authorities is pretty much.
Well, what page are you on? Tell me where you are.
Let's get on page 3.
Page 3, okay.
Right. And it talks about not only the what is not lawful, but it also talks about the governing authorities in the use of those fireworks, even to the point that it talks about the state fire marshal, law enforcement agencies would have the control over those particular locations where they're used. The sale of those fireworks is really in 129. It should be lawful to sell consumer fireworks. It's in consumer fireworks at retail facilities. Then it goes through the rules of where they can be with, and that's where the 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant.
Okay, so you're talking about on 132 in compliance with
That's
requirements
right.
such permit
That's
consumer
right.
fireworks as provided for in that NFPA 1124. That's what we got
Yes.
into that last year.
Yes.
And then they've got to have
And
the.
Right.
Okay,
Of a
in
county,
section B.
municipality, political subdivision, fire department, connections to buildings, etc.
Okay. All right.
It also, on line 156, it says, well, actually, it starts back up. No distributor's license pursuant to the code shall at one time be more than 2 temporary fireworks in the retail stands. Goes on down, and then it talks about the consumer fireworks and being permitted, and relates to those governments that would oversee would collect the fees and would also oversee the fireworks that are sold.
All right, what line you on there, sir? Let me see that.
Okay. Well, I'm starting at 169, and I thought I had everything really underlined, but
Okay, you're back to the
notes.
172. It talks about the
Yeah.
provided for in NFPA 1124 again.
Right. I do not see
what I was looking for was the
And you were looking for the, where the actual words that says the
County or
various
local government.
counties or local governments.
269. Thank you. All right.
Let me see if I had it on here.
Okay, thank you, 269. That talks about the,
Okay.
notwithstanding subsection B, the governing authority of county municipal corporation may provide for permits. That's what I was looking for, of the consumer fireworks as provided under these code sections. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Number 17, you have a question, sir.
Yes, I do. And thank you for pointing that. I was looking for that same reference to the cities and counties having jurisdiction. Chairman Battles,
Yes, sir.
I noticed in line 28 that there's a reference to temporary building or structure, including a tent, a canopy, or a membrane structure.
Yes.
That's
This was added, this was not a part of the original bill. This actually came out of the substitute that came from Chairman Taylor, Tom Taylor. And I wish he was here to speak to that, but he had expanded those locations that was not in the original bill.
And I know he's not here, but is there a justification for why that expansion? Because it would appear that with fireworks, tents, canopies, and membranes may provide for a greater hazard.
Well, I think that as far as the hazard is concerned, when you consider that the fire department has to determine that you're located in an area that is close to a fire hydrant or a commercial building that has maybe a connection that is on their building that could be tapped into. I think I guess the safety valve there is that they have to be permitted by the fire department, and they would certainly, in that permitting process, determine whether or not that they could actually deal with a fire or an emergency there.
But being close to a hydrant doesn't reduce the hazard.
No, it does not. It does not. One of the things, and of course these again are consumer fireworks. It's not the large commercial type of fireworks, and that's the point has to be made. There's a whole different sales pattern and permitting pattern when you get into the large commercial type of fireworks. We're dealing with the locations of consumer fireworks. And in the original legislation, House Bill 110, it did, in fact, describe the amount of substance that is in the fireworks and regulates it so that it is a consumer, such as a firecracker or maybe a Roman candle. But the amount is very small in comparison to the commercial fireworks.
One further question. You mentioned that this was not a part of the original bill and it was added in a subcommittee.
Yes.
And I understand Representative Taylor is not here to explain. But again, do you have a sense of what value does it add to include tents, canopies, and membrane structures?
Well, his, I'm sure, was the attempt was to give more, I guess, availability of locations for the sale of fireworks. There were a number who came, and I'm sure they talked with me, and I'm sure they talked with Chairman Taylor about expanding those, and in some cases not having a brick and mortar type of facility. That they would have a temporary, could be in a trailer, or it could be in a tent, like we've seen for years with sparklers and those things that came underneath the, I guess underneath the status of being a fireworks as such, that slept under those. It was in shopping centers all across Georgia. But now, because of the amount of explosive that just puts it into the framework of describing this as a firework, consumer firework, that in itself is saying they could still sell that in a tent, but it has restrictions based on the location of a fire hydrant or a connection that they could tap onto in case of a fire.
It would just seem to me that if we're 1 year after passing House Bill 110, having to come back and make adjustments because of the hours and other concerns about the bill, that we would be more careful about expanding a bill that we are already having to come back and make adjustments to. I'm not sure that it's good policy to, on the one hand, offer additional requirements for fireworks, and then on the other hand, at the same time, expand where it's being sold.
And I could not agree with you more. What we really attempted to do, let me say I attempted to do, was to deal with the two issues. Two issues being local control and health and public safety. And anytime, as we're all aware of, and I'm certainly aware of, these bills get added on to. And this is what has happened. I have not seen where that there was a major problem with that, as long as there was the oversight of a fire inspector and local governments doing that. They can also deny a location. This is permitting like anything else. If they feel this is not a site that is covered for safety, could cause possible harm, or whatever reason that they determine legitimately that there should not be a site there, they can deny it. That is the good thing about this local control. They're there, they see it, and they can deny this. Also, the Georgia State Fire Marshal can do the same thing.
Thank you, Mr.
That was the point I was tried to get at a while ago, trying to local control, because it has to be permitted, whether it's a tent or whatever. It's still got to be permitted by the local authorities.
Exactly.
And under the 110 that we passed, I think I'm breaking up or something here. I don't know what I'm hitting. The hard brick and mortar stores were able to go out and put up 2 tents. I believe in the original legislation they could have 2 tent facilities of their own if they wanted to do that. I think that was in the original legislation. But this does give local control. They can determine if they don't want tent structures out there, then the locals can deny that, from what I understand in the bill. Number 14, you were next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to pick up on that real fast. And Representative Battles, I want to applaud you for bringing this bill with the local control thing. It was something that I think we kind of missed out on last year. The only thing I want to do is pick up on Representative Flood, what he was talking about with the tents. I'm trying to, there was so much discussion about this last year when we did it. You can't remember everything anyway, but I do remember when we were talking about tents and temporary structures and things like that. One of the concerns was how hard they were to regulate, and just sort of coming in, getting out, this, that, and everything else. The other aspect was the bigger firework companies or whatever, the brick and mortars, were actually creating jobs and bringing more people in or whatever. But it seems to me, based on what you and the chairman are saying, you feel like local control is going to take care of that problem, especially the regulation problem?
I believe that. And that's the main focus is to make sure that those that have jurisdiction can monitor that, and they can approve that, and this can be an ongoing process. This doesn't say, well, okay, you could put your location here, and that's the last time you see them, because this approval process is continuous. It's not one time and you're there forever. But I do believe let's put it like this. I believe the local control is better than what it is right now.
Oh, I definitely believe the local
Absolutely.
control is better than what it is right now, but I hope it's not a continuous process for this committee.
Well, and I do appreciate you bringing that up. I think this is one that'll be revisited and revisited and revisited, because I don't think you'll ever get it perfected to the point where it's just absolutely like everybody wants it. This is just kind of a first step in getting somewhat of a hold on that, and it would not surprise me that you saw this to come up in the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Number 22. 22?
Well, that's me.
That be you? Okay, sir.
Thank you for bringing the bill, Chairman Battles and Chairman Flood. I might be able to,
Are you on?
I think my red light's on. Hello? I'll talk loud. This is, all right, now I'm on. Much like the prior bill we heard, we're being asked to referee competing interests between two segments of this industry that are selling at retail, one jockeying for competitive advantage versus the other. The bill last year allowed brick and mortar stores with up to 2 tenths and no more. The bill today, as presented, would allow, as someone said earlier, a competing business model, which is a temporary retail sales that sells only from temporary facilities, the tents and so forth, and would put on those people the $750 per location permit fee, and payable to the local jurisdiction. This bill has substantial local control. Distances, locations, hours of operation, safety, and so forth. So I don't think it's in any way a runaway bill by any stretch of the imagination. The incidence of fire safety issues with regard to these temporary structures as compared to others is negligible. We haven't seen any kind of tremendous detrimental impact of that. But then I'm going to clarify 2 questions with the author. If we'll go first to line 152, which I believe is on page 5. And this is the existing law, so this is not underlined or struck out. Right. So I want to confirm right here where we start on line 152 and go on to line 153, no distributor licensed pursuant to this code section shall at any time operate more than 2 temporary consumer fireworks retail stands. So this is the existing laws. This is the traditional
right.
brick and mortar.
Plus 2.
Mm-hmm. And those 2 stands now, they could be 2 tenths.
They could.
Correct?
They could.
And so nothing has changed there. Our traditional brick and mortar retailer can operate 2 temporary tent facilities as well.
They could.
Okay. Now then, if you'll flip over to lines 169, well, there's no flip, it's at the bottom of the same page, where we say it shall be lawful to sell consumer fireworks from the temporary facilities. This is new language and continues over at the top of page 6, again in compliance with requirements, distance requirements, and so forth. Is there a number restriction on that business model, the person that does not operate a brick and mortar building? Later in the bill on line 213, we see they pay $750 per location.
Right.
But is that particular vendor limited to only 2 locations, or that could be an unlimited number with local approval, with distance
Exactly.
requirements and so forth?
There's no limitation.
I just want to clarify my understanding there. Thank you.
All right, number 23, you had a question, sir. Okay. Number 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I was got bills in front of 3 committees today, so I've been kind of doing the getting the exercise routine in. I just want to say, for the record, that Chairman Battles and I have worked on this bill a lot, and Sean Marie has done a fantastic job with this, putting a lot of this together. I think it addresses the aspects that we're looking at. One is local control. You put the control back to the smallest common denominator. Chairman Battles concerned with public safety, which I mean we all agree with, and also level playing field. I think it addresses all three of those things, and I just want to put that in the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I said earlier when you were at another meeting, I appreciate the work of the subcommittees this year. You guys have done just a wonderful job in working through this legislation. I know you've spent a lot of time on this piece, along with the other chairman on other pieces of legislation. But thank you for your hard work in subcommittee, sir. All right, I see no other questions. What's the mind of the committee at this time? Got a move to pass. Have a second. All in favor? Are there any other questions? Any further questions from the committee? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign? All right, we got you recorded, ma'am. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Now, the subcommittee for Chairman Martin, he should be here hopefully shortly. I'm going to text him and tell him we're ready for him. We've got a hearing on House Bill 1001 coming up in this room. So those that are on that subcommittee and those that of the committee that want to stay and hear that bill, you're welcome to stay. Let me find out where Chairman Martin is. Thank